Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice, and we're talking about everybody's favorite topic today. We're talking about marketing. I love marketing. I also hate marketing all at the same time, so it's a very interesting dynamic for me. But thankfully, it's not just me here. I have a guest with us, and she's way better at marketing and probably likes it way more than I do, too. My guest is Jocelynn Flowers. Before we go any further, Jocelynn, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with your audience.
Let's just clarify. Do you hate marketing like I do?
I actually love marketing. There's certain elements of marketing that aren't my favorite, but I do overall love marketing.
Okay, good. It can't be both of us. So I love it and hate it. I love studying it. I love looking at other people's marketing. Cannot stand it when it comes to my own, mostly because it's very, very confusing. So hopefully you can help us unpack what I'm doing wrong first and foremost, and help the listener unpack what they're doing wrong too. So we're talking about 3 non-negotiables when it comes to your marketing. So let's set the stage here, because I think, and I've made this joke before, I hope to not offend anybody, but you can swing a cat in any room and you will hit 4 marketing experts. So tell me about you. Why do you not fit in with the crowd? What makes you different in terms of a marketing expert?
Oh, I love this question. So one of the things that I kind of go against the grain a little bit of the standard marketing industry is I'm really big at who's the individual that we are marketing. So bringing the human element into the forefront and really focusing on them, because their essence is what people are really going to connect with and what they're going to resonate and say, I see myself in that person. If they can do it, I can do it. Where now that we have all of these different software, we have all these AI tools, things like that, that people are feeling that that's going to kind of replace the human element. What I want to suggest and kind of recommend is that you have a balance. So yes, leverage those tools if it's going to help market more efficiently, it's going to give you more creative ideas, but still have the human element in there, because that's what makes you unique and what people are really going to connect with most.
Interesting. I like that. That's a good take. And yeah, that's everybody's concern, right? Like the world of AI, it's robots are going to take over the world, and it's going to be like, what's that Will Smith movie, I, Robot?
Yes.
Maybe we're not too far off, but I always like bringing the human element into it. So let's start to unpack then. What are these 3 non-negotiables that we want to talk about here today?
Yes, absolutely. So the number one non-negotiable is just show up. So it doesn't have to be very specific in what's the perfect platform to show up on. The key is just to show up. You cannot be a success and a secret at the same time. One of my greatest mentors shares that with me all the time. Sometimes I need a little more of that reminder, but it really is true that if you want to really get out there and have a greater impact, you just have to show up and show up authentically and show up because the right people are going to find you when you do that. And when you are looking at platforms, go with the one that you feel most comfortable with. If you use it kind of in your personal life, start seeing what it has available for the business side. And I always say start small. And then if you want to add in, you can add in along the way. But just create that habit of just showing up, and you're going to have wisdom that comes out no matter what. It's just making sure that you're taking the time and committing to that show up.
Okay, I already hate these 3 because I don't like that one. That's my least favorite so far. Off to a good start here. Okay, well, let me explain why, because I know I'm not alone. I've talked to so many people about this, and it's picking the platform. So when you say show up and pick a platform, help me understand what that could look like. And let me also say this. I hate it so much that I created this podcast so I don't have to think about showing up, because I can do this all day long. I can have these conversations. We do it daily. We post a show every single day of the week. easy, effortless.
So,
You tell me to go post on Instagram, I will do anything else humanly possible to not post on Instagram. So how do we start to understand where to post, when to post, all this, and the platforms to post on? How do we do this?
yeah, absolutely. So I love one of the things that you actually just brought up is that I don't want to show up on every platform individually. And so one of the keys is finding out how do you want to show up? What's the impact you really want to have with your audience? Do you feel comfortable on video? Do you feel comfortable more kind of being behind the scenes? I'm definitely that person, even though I feel very outgoing when I'm able to connect with people, but I show up more when I have someone to show up for. And so knowing that there's people out there that need the insight that I have, that need the tools or access to things that they may not have or the knowledge of, if I'm showing up, I'm doing a service for them. If I'm not showing up, I'm doing a disservice to them. So that's really important. And sometimes to get that consistency, you just have to know who you're showing up for because like myself, I show up more for others than I necessarily always do for myself. But the way that I kind of changed that is I made my business a client. So if I didn't show up for a client, it's not going to be successful. And every client that I work with, I partner with them. So they're never in it alone. I work with them where they are and where they want to go. So just knowing who you're showing up for and committing to showing up for them in any way that you can.
I love that. And can we just highlight so far the gold nugget quotes that you dropped in this episode? You show up more when you know who you show up for, and the other one, the first one was you can't be a secret and a success at the same time. I'm just
Yeah.
we're gonna keep these. We're gonna keep a note of these, and I'm just gonna add them to my little mantras in the morning. I love this. Okay, that's fair, and I can handle that. You will still not catch me posting pictures on Instagram. Anyway, um, step two, though, what is the second non-negotiable that we need to be aware of?
Yes. So the second one is actually one that I get the question about the most is what do you offer? With the clients that I work with, primarily in the coaching field, but I also work with a lot of service-based providers and entrepreneurs, is I don't really know what I'm offering to my audience, so I can't show up if I don't know what I'm talking to them about. And yes, that's an important element, but it's not the defining element. When you start showing up and sharing your insight, sharing your wisdom, it's going to come to you what you're offering because people are going to respond to that. They're going to let you know what they need. And if it's in your skill set, you're going to know what you're offering them. Now, it took me 8 years. I've now been in business 8 years, 8 years to really get a good picture of what I want to offer and the experience I want my clients to have, the transformation I want them to have in just more people are going to remember the experience you're giving them than necessarily the service you're providing. So how can you bring all of these elements together? And that's really going to formulate what are you offering for them. So it makes it a little bit easier to talk about, oh, I offer this service or I offer this program or I offer this product once you start to interact with your audience and they will tell you what they want and need.
Do you think that comes from perfectionism a little bit, like just having to know all of the details before you even put it out there?
Absolutely. Perfectionism, imposter syndrome, it's all there. And it's always going to be there somewhat for a lot of people. But when, again, you say, I'm going to commit to this and I know who I'm showing up for, they're going to tell me what they need from me. I just need to listen. I need to interact. I need to engage, and it's all going to come to you. It doesn't have to be there immediately. I know when I first started showing up with my company, I was like, how is anyone going to take me seriously? How do I know more than what all these other industry experts know? But it was just being comfortable and confident that I knew what I was talking about. I knew what I could offer people and the experience I wanted them to have. I just needed to start talking about it, and eventually I would find the right words or the ones that people would gravitate toward more for them to get that understanding of what do I offer to them.
I can see how that could be the scary one, or the one where people, kind of get hung up. So I'm curious for you, when you say you were putting it out there, you were talking about it. Obviously, this is a medium to test messages. You can get on podcasts, interviews, stuff like that. But what were some of the ways that you sort of tested that messaging in the beginning, and still do? I'm sure you still test it, but
Absolutely.
how are you putting the message out there to see how people respond?
Yes. So in the beginning, I really started out more in the in-person networking. Again, this is way before the pandemic happened. And so I kind of made a game out of it of how many networking events could I attend within a week's time, and just start having those conversations with people, because I would talk to people who were in the same boat, just kind of starting out, and people who have been in business 30, 40 years, and really being able to take their knowledge and their experiences that they've had and say, oh yeah, that really resonates with me, I would approach it this way, or oh, that's a great way to think about it, but maybe I would go about it this way. So it just really kept that kind of creative thinking open of how do I get out there more, and again, taking classes and learning more techniques on how to do that. Because when I had that avenue, I then said, well, I can do the same thing on social media. The only difference is I'm not face to face with them. So, how can I have that same experience from in person networking to social media? I'm going to start going live. I'm going to start creating video. I'm going to start reaching out and following people that I resonate with and would love to connect with, and start having those conversations that way. And it just kind of became a game. And all right, I tackle this one, I tackle this one, and then seeing how they all can really melt together to create that network and that audience that ideally I want to speak to.
Yeah, you just put in the reps, right? Like you get more used to it as you continue to do it. It's true for almost everything. I love it. All right, so those two make sense. I hated the first one, but I'm coming around to it. Second one, I'm in line with. I agree. What's number three?
So, number three is implementing your marketing effectively. And this is generally where I find you either get super stuck, because a lot of my clients will say, how in the world can you plan a month or 2 months out of content? How do you know what's going to be relevant? And what I always tell them is, no matter what you're putting out there, it's going to be relevant to someone in that moment. Everybody's having different experiences, everybody's at different stages, and that information is going to be downloaded to that person when they need it most. So, being able to kind of plan out, and especially if you're an entrepreneur who doesn't have a team and you're doing everything yourself, you're wearing all of the hats. I've been there. It took a while to build to where I am now, is that I had to figure out what are the systems I need to have in place that allow me to do it effectively and get everything out there, where I wasn't having to do manual posts every single day. Because as an entrepreneur, your day's filled. You have all of these different categories that you're worrying about. So, finding things that work best for you. Now, I am someone who loves automation. I got certified in systems because I loved learning the inner workings of how different software and things work and how it could benefit my business or my clients' businesses, because everyone has a different approach. So, one way is not going to be the perfect way to do it. You have to find what works best for each individual. And so, finding that system that works for you, whether I have a client who is diehard paper and pen only, they have millions of binders in their office of all of their notes, and that works for them. Where I have clients that hate the clutter of paper, so they had to figure out, how do I organize my files and my content digitally? So I was able to really kind of formulate those systems with them to get their content implemented. And it really does free up the mind for all of those creative ideas to come in when you have things working for you versus having to kind of go against the grain the entire time.
Yeah. Real quick, what's paper and pen? Can you help me understand that? I've never heard of these things.
I know, lost art.
Okay, so now we know how old I am. Yeah, not a fan of those two things, but I would love to know because I fail here miserably. Execution of posting and creating content, again, not my strength. But I also have clients who run multi-million-dollar businesses where they for sure are not going to do it, and they really don't have anyone on their team that specializes in marketing and posting content and stuff like that. So can you give me an understanding of whatever one of these systems could look like? And I fully understand it's going to look different for everybody, but just so we can start to kind of spin our wheels of like, oh, maybe this isn't as hard as I've made it out to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always kind of a triad of systems that I always say are really important as a business owner. And one of them is going to be your CRM, which is your client manager, where that's all the data you need to have for the clients or customers that you're working with to keep it organized in one fashion. Especially if you're working with a variety of different type of clients, you want to make sure that you have somewhere that you can easily refer back to. Second is a scheduling system, whether for your content or just general business schedule, because that's going to help you kind of map out. I am someone who loves calendar blocking, and everything's color coded because when I look at my calendar, I know exactly what mindset I'm going into based on the color blocking that I have on my calendar. So I know, oh, this is going into marketing mode, this is going into client mode, and vice versa. So being able to have those systems that organize your thoughts a little bit is really helpful. And when it comes to scheduling content, you're going to want to have something that obviously works with the platforms you're wanting to be on and be present on. There's some software that works with every platform out there. There's some that works with very little. So it's just kind of doing your research a little bit to see what will work best for you. But it's creating the habit. That's the most important thing, is just what's going to work for me? How can I go through my checklist and organizing everything that I need? Um, sorry, excuse me. I'm a big lover of Google Drive. That's where I store all of the client content. And then my team knows where to go to find the content to then place it in the scheduler and automate it.
That's awesome. I love that. And I'm also curious too, because that flow, obviously we have to customize to our own business. So you can't just
Mhm.
take everything that Jocelynn just said and copy and paste it. But that'll give you a good starting point. The second side of that we already talked about with the robots taking over the world is how do you personally use AI? Can you give me an example of how you're using AI to make this process easier? Because I think that's a really huge advantage that we have now versus even 2 years ago, where we can create marketing in as little as 5-10 minutes and it could be good. So give me an example of how you're using AI and maybe how some of the listeners can too.
Absolutely. So I primarily use AI more as kind of a creative starter. So I work with clients, as I mentioned earlier, primarily in the coaching industry. Now, I'm not a money coach, I'm not a business expert coach. So a lot of the times when I have clients come to me, especially in a field that maybe I'm new to or have know a little bit, but I really want to get more of an understanding of the ins and outs, I will go, okay, what are common problems or gaps that business coaches solve? And so I just put it in there kind of as a content generator in a sense of here's common things that people are talking about already. Great. Now, how can I formulate content that's specific to this client's voice from that and creating the strategies and things like that? Because I never claim to be an expert in everything. I don't think anybody ever is, but I'm always open to learning about new ways to approach things. And so that's really how I use AI, as more to kind of kickstart that creative process and then kind of run with it from there. And then there's one other one that for video editing that I use. And right now, of course, the name of it is leaving my brain. But I use it to kind of expedite the transition process when I'm melting more than one video together. and it just takes so much time off my plate, where I'm not sitting there going increment by increment, editing the video. It kind of just expedites that process a little bit more.
I love it. So then talk to me. We're not going to call out the listeners. Someone who is not very good at this and really, really hates one of your steps, but understands also that they're very important. They are non-negotiables, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
How much time should I be blocking off and spending on this, whether it's per day or per week, to actually be effective and start to see some results, assuming that I actually execute and continue to be consistent?
Absolutely. So I would say at least an hour a day, and you can break that up. I never want to kind of tackle all things marketing in one sector. So one day out of the week, I'll say, okay, I'm going to brainstorm content ideas. I'm going to spend an hour. I'm going to turn all my notifications off and just sit down in creative mode and start going through all of my ideas. Then another day, I'm going to say, okay, how can I plan this out so that it doesn't seem kind of chaotic when it's going to get posted? What's my vision for how this is going to be presented through my marketing platforms? So then I map that out. Then I go into the actual creation process of, okay, what do I need now that I have a team? What do I need to delegate, and what do they need to know to be able to execute the vision that I've kind of mapped out? Um, and then, of course, the writing process. That is the one part of marketing I will say is my least favorite, is the writing. Um, but I do have to have that focused time into making sure, because I often get told, which I'm working on, is that sometimes I use too much of the marketing lingo, and I'm speaking a whole nother language, and my clients go, "What does that mean?" And I'm like, okay, breaking it down a little bit more. So I actually take a lot more time. I take the most time on the writing portion because I want to make sure that, yes, I'm speaking about a topic properly and effectively, but also that the widest audience can understand and kind of implement from there. Um, because if they can't take in your content and understand what you're talking about, then you're doing a disservice to them, I think. So that's something I really focus on a majority of the time.
I love it. I think I can do that. I think I can do an hour a day. So I'll make a commitment to you publicly. It's going to be roughly, if you're listening to this on the day it's released, we recorded this roughly 3 months ago. So I will dedicate an hour a day for the next 3 months, and we'll see the difference it makes between now and when this is released. I'll even put it in the show notes, what results I find. And then you can copy it. You can copy me, copy Jocelynn, and follow this framework too. Make sure you execute on those 3 non-negotiables. Jocelynn, I love it. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. And one of the things that I love you just said is you're going to put it on the calendar. When you put something on the calendar, it gives you the mindset of, there's something I'm committing to and showing up for. So
And that's
I'm excited.
precisely why I've never put it on the calendar, because I live by that. My day is fully scheduled. I have color codes, everything. Marketing is nowhere to be found for that reason. Yeah. I love it. Where can the listeners find out more about you, and if they want to take the next step and actually execute on this stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So you can go to our website at jflowersmarketing.com, and we're on all of the primary social media platforms as well. So come connect with us.
Awesome. We'll put all those links down in the show notes below, wherever you're watching and listening. I love to end these interviews with a question, but it's a question from you to the listener. We believe that powerful questions get powerful answers. And I want to know, based on the context of this interview, what is the powerful question that someone can be asking themselves in terms of whether it's starting their marketing, taking it to the next level, around the 3 non-negotiables? What should someone be asking themselves until they get that answer?
Absolutely. So the question that comes to mind for me is, what is the big dream that I have? Because that dream is going to have multiple different paths that you will take to get there, and it's going to help kind of line that out. So my question to you is, what is your ultimate big dream?
I love it. Anytime someone asks a question about this, I always say it's sipping martinis on the beach. I haven't gotten it yet, so I'm gonna keep trying.
I think that's a wonderful dream.
Don't encourage. That's a terrible dream. Don't encourage that. But I hope you as a listener have a much better dream than I do. I love doing this. That's my dream. I want to do more of these episodes, help people grow their businesses. Thank you, Jocelynn, for being here. And wherever you're watching and listening, make sure you subscribe. We love putting these episodes out 5 days a week so you can grow your business. You can have a harmonious business and life. Isn't that the whole goal? Sip those martinis on the beach. We'll see you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.